Good morning from Vietnam, Anna. I know that it's late in the evening on the weekend for you, so thanks a lot for joining our Inside Sharing show and sharing your stories with our global audience. On behalf of them, I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to speak with you tonight.
And I have an opportunity to talk to Stella, a great friend of yours, and also the co-author of the book Human It Works, and that's how we connected. And you have been a very successful career journey, and that's why I wanted to bring you to the show and share your stories with our audience. And hope by the end of the conversation, there will be things that our audience can pick to reflect, to think, to learn, and to apply in their life. So thanks a lot for accepting my invitation.
Oh, I'm delighted. And, please feel free to jump in and ask questions because I do want to be helpful to people as they listen to the show.
Absolutely, absolutely, I would. Um, and this show is all about you, so we're gonna ask a lot of questions about you. And so in our cultures, you told me that you knew a lot about Vietnamese people already. So in our culture, it's very respectful for our audience and honors for them also to have you introduce about who you are and the works that you do. Would you please do that?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, the most important thing to know about me right now is that I am working really hard for the next, to educate the next generation of workers, really. People who are entering the workplace, people who are just beginning to build their careers, and I, in my role as the department chair and the faculty member at New York University, I have a lot of opportunity to shape people's lives really through education, and that's what inspires me. That's what makes me, really excited every day to go to work and make a difference.
Wow. I think we all want to make a difference, and uh, and this talk is an opportunity for us to figure out the journey that takes you to what you are doing now at the university. All right. So when I was young, I wanted to become an astronaut. So when I was very, very young, and life didn't give me any opportunity to do anything close to being one, astronaut. And so, allow me to carry Anna back in time. When you were young,
Mhm.
what did you what did you dream about your future, though?
It's astronaut is very, is very admirable and very uplifting. I actually always loved teaching.
Oh,
There are two things that, fascinated me. Both my parents were teachers, right?
wow.
They both, in their respective fields. So I was literally surrounded by the educators, and it just came, natural to me. At one point, I was interviewed about my very first job, because everyone wants to know, how people got started. And it just occurred to me that I actually turned my passion, and my passion was learning languages.
Hmm.
So I've been learning languages since I was very young, and I learned German, French, not Vietnamese, and not no Asian languages, unfortunately. Um, I was fascinated by Latin, which is kind of the original language of a lot of European idioms, and so my very first job was tutoring people in languages
Oh,
because that's something that came naturally to me, and I loved it, and I loved teaching, and combining this together was a natural way for me to kind of turn this into something that I really, really aspired to do then at the university level. I always wanted to be kind of a university professor, even though I didn't stay on the university track all of my life, but I did return to it at this point, kind of in this chapter in my career.
You see, Steve Jobs said that we cannot look at and connect the dot forward, right? We can always connect the dot backwards, and
Exactly.
yeah. So whatever the path takes us, it will always take us back to where we actually, wanted to do most at the end of the journey, right? Somewhere in the journey we
Exactly.
connected.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your first job was like a tutor, teaching people on language. So what happened after that, though, Anna? Share with us the journey.
The one of the things that I really, what the language has meant to me
Mm.
is studying people and culture. I really, this is where I talk to you about Latin and like as the original language. So I was absolutely fascinated in the how the language shapes the way people see the world,
Mm.
and what I done, from there I was studying psychology, and it's very interesting that for me everything was kind of through the lens of the language. A lot of psychologists are monolingual.
Mm.
They study psychology as a science in itself, but to me everything was connected um, with the way people, with the people experience culture. And I always saw a bigger kind of filtering mechanisms that set on people's behavior through their culture.
Mm.
And so from language, which was, a fascination and a skill, because when we talk about psychology, it's less of a skill, at least as you studied at school, but kind of the way, you analyze a kind of conceptual framework. But with the language, there's a very specific skill. There's grammar, there's pronunciation, there's et cetera, et cetera. So I like that aspect. Then you take it to psychology, which I also studied at school.
Mm.
Then from there, I became very interested in business, believe it or not,
Mm.
because I, got my first kind of big corporate gig as a translator, translating for American businesses expanding globally. And I started traveling, translating, and realizing how much, the knowledge of language also defines how business is done. So I followed and got a business degree as well, that helped me connect, language, culture, business. And then later on, I also was absolutely kind of drawn into neuroscience, which came in and, you know, and I did a lot of studying on my own. I didn't go to school for neuroscience. And again, there's a kind of a clinical side to neuroscience, but again, to understand how human brain works,
Mm.
which again takes you back to the language, right? Because the language shapes the hardware of the brain.
Yep.
And that's where, so it kind of all comes together. It starts with the language and how we learn and how we are shaped through a culture that is delivered to us through language, right? And then we kind of go through various stages in our lives, etc., and get into different activities like business activities, education, and it kind of comes to full circle. What makes us human? And what makes us human is our ability to communicate, ability to relate to each other through language, and that's how kind of my mental model of of work or uh, professional life or personal life, it came all together.
Mm.
And so the book, Humans at Work, it was really interesting for me to really think about work not just as a business activity, but as a cultural activity and as a fundamentally human activity.
Mm.
Because it really is, and we don't often see it that way, but it really is fundamentally taking us back to the hardwiring to, our brains, our motivations, our goals, everything, to the psychology, to neuroscience, to the languages that shape us as a communication tool. I hope it makes sense.
Yep. I want to bring you back to when you was having the the passion about language, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you study not Vietnamese, not
No,
yeah,
unfortunately not. But
Germans
that
and
would be
French. Yeah,
something
yeah.
absolutely fascinating to me to, to even discuss, how your language shapes the reality in which you are,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
And how different it is from other languages. You speak like English, for example, so well, so which means to me that you also understand the kind of the mental models in which English operates, right?
Yep.
So you're at a great advantage to myself, who can, see your world, but I will be shaping it in terms of my own, language. And that's a limitation. If you speak multiple languages, that's what allows you to be, a lot more, agile and adjusted to the world. That's my point of view.
So Anna, for that very long, you say that the language also give you the curiosity on, understanding the culture, of the people who speak the language, and that, and somewhere, somewhat along the way, you got a job that enable you to travel the world, understand not only the language, but also from there you'll be able to connect to the cultures of, and how did that feel to you on that journey?
I mean, I think it's incredible.
Ah.
I think the best thing that can happen to anyone from the career perspective is if you can find opportunities to connect what really you're curious about,
Mm.
you're motivated to learn, motivated to, to really put in a lot of time to master, and then you find an opportunity to apply it and to be paid for it. It's almost like what we're saying about jobs or work. If you're passionate about something, it doesn't feel like work. This is why I always say that, how people talk about work life balance.
Mm.
And we know that it's such an outdated concept, and it's clearly very important, but I'm much more committed to helping people find that great connection between what they're really interested in and the work that they are doing. And I think it is possible, because I think every job has that element of motivation and purposefulness
Mm.
that people bring to it.
And how can we help them to find that one, that Anna?
I think it's a combination of people looking for it. It's not going to, it's not just all these types of jobs and activities are laid out and you can just come and pick and choose.
Mm.
Most of the time, you have to create those jobs for yourself.
Ah.
You have to find the right people. You have to be, shaping your own career, your own opportunities as they come along, and be proactive about it. And that's where motivation really matters. This is where, anywhere from neuroscience to psychology to just your plain everyday HR function, a management function is the number one priority is to find that alignment between people's motivations and their day-to-day activities. Because if you find the alignment, that's the kind of the magic sweet spot where you're going to get so much more out of life, out of your career, in the company or organization you're working for, or a hobby or your own passion that you pursue, like with these sessions for you, then everything kind of falls into place. It doesn't feel like work because of this alignment.
And a lot of alignments are out of control for managers also. Because if you are my managers and you know that that's something that I would want to do, but there's no roles available, there's nothing available yet. So and then making that holistic change in organization takes a lot of time, because right now a lot of things that we're working on under the old management approach, and it's not easy to make that change, right? So how can we take the baby steps to help organization to start changing their, their way of working, Anna?
Yeah, I mean, it's already happening.
Mm.
I think, obviously we continue to make, like you said, baby steps, but I think the whole science of management has been shifting significantly. At least we're seeing it in the US, in Europe, and in other countries where there's a lot more autonomy that is being given and delegated to people at lower and lower levels in their organization. For example, I did some major studies of performance management systems in companies. In addition to being a professor, I actually spent 15 years working for different businesses for Fortune 50 companies in technology and financial services. And I worked in Europe and I worked in the United States. And, working for those companies, I realized, to your point, how the idea of what good management is shifting. So I did a study of performance management systems. These are the systems that control performance in organizations. And we made a big pivot from performance management being very prescribed. You set your goals once a year and you do a debrief on those goals at the end of the year, and everything is defined and you're being compensated and rewarded for what you've done, whether you met your goals or not. So that's the old performance system. And now a lot of companies, especially technology and innovative companies everywhere, at least I know in the United States and in Europe, are moving to what they called agile performance management systems, where a lot of companies got rid of any sort of goal setting and are setting objectives that are frequently adjusted because of just the pace of the changes in the business. But most importantly, to your point about management, the managers are becoming coaches. So the managers are stepping out of the supervisory role and becoming coaches to their employees and the teams. Because also it has to do with the fact that the jobs, even at the entry level, are becoming more and more complicated and they're valued a lot more. So we're seeing these management transitions into coaching as a very important element of that transformation that I'm talking about. And it's everywhere. It is happening now. So we're going to see a whole new generation of people running companies and coming into organizations with very different assumptions of what management needs to be.
And Anna, you've been in the field for talent development for so long, right? Organization development for so long. Do you do you see the investment from like companies on transitioning management onto coaching uh, been successful over the years?
Yes, yes.
Mm.
I think I actually, in my program at New York University, when I joined it 6 years ago,
Yeah.
it was a just an HR program, right?
Mm.
So I was the head of the HR program. I created two additional programs, and now I have a portfolio of programs. And those programs are Human Capital Analytics and Technology, which is a STEM program. So I really strongly believe that quantitative skills and understanding of technology is critical for even for HR professionals.
Mm.
So I created that program, and that's where Stella teaches. She teaches digital workplace design in that program.
Uh-huh.
And then the other program that I created is called Executive Coaching and Organizational Consulting. It was the first program at the master's level that was developed in the United States. And now both analytics program, people analytics program, and executive coaching and organizational consulting programs are booming. We see people coming from all different professions. A lot of them already have master's degrees and they're getting their second master's. We see people switching into coaching from, being attorneys, from running companies, from, all different professions and learning those skills.
Mm.
So I think it is just fascinating to watch how coaching is becoming all pervasive. And I did a presentation for one of the big HR consulting firms. And my point to them was that the future of management is coaching.
Yep.
So managers are going to be coaches rather than the traditional supervisors who are going to be telling you exactly what to do. At least that's the direction I'm seeing most the US organizations are taking.
I see. I see. Thanks a lot for sharing that. Tell me about the occasion that you and Sheila worked on the book. Can you share with us?
So Humans at Work
Yeah.
is really, first of all, the book was written during the pandemic.
Mm.
We all have been through it, and it was a very difficult time. And it was clear to us that we are going to emerge out of the pandemic in a very different place, or at least we should, right?
Yep.
We were thinking that we cannot lose those lessons from the pandemic. And we need to think about what that new world of work look like after we kind of emerge. And I know it's a slow process. We're still kind of in this pandemic, but I think a lot of fundamental changes already took place. And so we divided the book into 4 parts. First, we wrote about work. So what is work? And workforce. Who are the people who are actually working, right?
Mm.
Which is also changing. All of those elements are in flux. A workplace, I think there's enough that's been, written and discussed about hybrid working and working from home, etc. So workplace is changing, and the final W, it's 4 W's in English, 4 W's, and the final W is worth, which means purpose, meaning, why, that question of why am I working?
Mm.
And so the book consisted of kind of the chapters that described the whole evolution and gave a historical perspective to where we are now and projecting into the future.
Mm.
So kind of the their overview, and the appendix, which kind of presented everything in charts and visualizations. And then we finished with the manifesto, really asking for, those who are reading the book to kind of accept our point of view on the transition that needs to happen if we are, and that's how we really thought about it, if we are even to survive as a planet, because we know that the planet is at risk. And if we continue to do what we've done before, we are going to self-destruct. We really had that sense of urgency to send that message across in the book. And since our area of expertise is the workplace, that's where we saw the transformation needing to happen.
Wow. Wow. Thanks a lot for you and Stella to write that book, to have help the leaders to realize the change that they need to make, so that their employees will come to the workplace and doing the work that worth for them, right? So they have the meaning, they have the
Exactly.
purpose. Then when the employees going to work and happy, going home happy, and that conversation at dining tables or breakfast table will be so beautiful. And that is a way that we can build the bridge for their children and future workforce, right? To go into work and have hope about the future also. So thanks a lot for doing that, Anna. And that's the way that we can change the world little by little. I have two last questions for you, because you want to end tonight, so that you can go rest early after the long week, right? Your works involve a lot of thinking, okay? And my wife and I are in the quest to help people to improve their ability to think, because we believe that our ability to think these days are diminishing, it's not increasing at all. So every chance that we got, every opportunity that we got a chance to talk to people like you, we will ask this question: Anna, how have you been helping yourself to expand your ability to think?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. First of all, I think it's for me, it's about getting out of the silo. It's very easy for us just to be doing what we're doing in our um, area of expertise, right? So, for me, it was technology and analytics. I mentioned that I, I was a linguist, and I was a cultural anthropologist, and then I learned business, because to me, business is cultural anthropology. At least that's how I approached it. And then I dabbled a little bit in neuroscience, et cetera, et cetera. And then I reached a point where I realized that I really need to understand technology. I really need to be following how the transformation occurs. And so it's be really constant learning and pushing yourself into the next uh, field that, it fascinates you and drives progress. Because I do think that technology is very, very powerful. And what is really interesting and maybe unusual to hear for you and some of the majority of people in the world, people think of technology as, you have to be an engineer, you know, you have to be an engineer. This is the way to understand technology, and that's how you're going to learn to code. You're going to. I personally don't think so. I think that clearly you have to have some, technical skills. But to me, for example, computer languages are language.
Hmm.
I keep coming back to language, right? It's actually what, from the neuroscience perspective, the parts of brain involved in learning computer languages are similar to language and not math, in terms of how these elements connect. So I really think that technology for me, and even analytics from the point of view of massive amounts of data that we are now able to generate, but then building and understanding the patterns that you see through the information presented through data. To your point in the very beginning of this podcast, it's about stories. Really, what matters? All of the technology and analytics that may be so daunting to the majority of people, at the end of the day, come back to our humanity. Why are we doing it? Can we tell stories that are going to be impactful and are going to move a lot of people in the right direction, right? And even if you are an engineer, etc., that's really admirable, but I think you're limited in what you can see through the skills that you may bring to the same coding and data analysis as somebody like myself with linguistics and cultural anthropology and other types of skill sets, right? So what's fascinating to me is that I think we are coming the full circle to this next level of innovation. And my recommendation to people who want to be current, who want to be challenging themselves and grow, is always look at what's in the frontier, what's driving innovation, and being able to connect it to what you already know. I don't think that there are things that become just entirely obsolescent, right? Entirely irrelevant. We kind of historically transition. I'm an evolutionist, right? As I like to look at the languages and connections to the world of business, to technology, to data, to everything we're doing now. And, if you think about, for example, I've spent a lot of time recently looking at the metaverse, VR, AR, and those types of technologies that are coming in. These are technologies that are really relying on a lot of imagination, right? It's almost like myth making. If you think of the history of humanity, we started out creating myths, creating alternatives, creating, our gods and everything. And I think we're coming there through technology back to the same place. So it's absolutely fascinating to me. And so it's kind of an expanding universe. You start out with something you can understand and master and learn the skills, and then it grows like a snowball effect. And if you can continue to be looking out of what's next, picking it up, connecting into what you're doing, you will be very, very valuable to society at large. Like myself, being in education now, I love doing what I'm doing and teaching my students, to make sense of their reality and not just learn the latest trick and sell their skills to whoever the employee is without understanding of what it means and how to make decisions.
Wow, thanks a lot for sharing the great advice, and definitely the people that you teach will be shaped, and you are helping the people to shape through themselves through educations and be able to see far beyond the ability for them to be seen at the moment and look really really far to connecting things when you say like in the frontiers, right? And bring it back to what we are working right now so that we can create, co-create something new. And uh, and that also leading me to the last question that I want to ask you for today, Anna Tavis. um, we know the past of what you did, like your parent was a teacher, and then you love to teach when you were young, and then gradually you're teaching people at the moment. We want to go into the future a little bit here, okay? Is there anything that Anna is working on and you are exciting and you want to share with us so that we can celebrate with you in advance?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, as you were speaking, one of the things that struck me, I always tell people, if you want to learn, you've got to teach,
Mm.
right? So in some ways, everything I was talking about teaching, my favorite thing, is about learning. Um, so the next thing I'm working on right now is, I'm really, really committed to expanding access to education for people who are not privileged, for people who are in the communities that do not have even the role models to be going to the university, right?
Mm.
So I teach at the university at the master's level. So I get people coming to us who are already very well educated. They have a university degree and they want to grow, and a lot of them are working. So what I've been trying to get my head around is how do how do we help people get that passion for learning much earlier in high schools, etc. It doesn't mean that I would go to the high schools, for example, and teach there, but thinking about structuring career pathways,
Mm.
working with the employers who I know very well, even the major employers, establishing programs that will be like apprenticeships, internships, for people who are, in high schools and might not be, ready to go to college. They might not have the means to go to college, but can we work with the employers and connect broader population of people, especially minorities and other types of people who are, again, not coming from like my parents were educators. So I was, in that sense, it's not about, how much money we had, but how much intention was put in to me by my parents to continue to learn, for
Mm.
me to learn. So some people don't have that opportunity, right?
Mm.
So that's where I'm looking right now to kind of expand the access to education and learning for as many people as possible, and finding the ways, working especially with the employers, to open their doors and create pathways, create on ramps into professions, um, and then help people continue to learn.
Wow, what a noble initiative, and thanks a lot for doing that. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are less fortunate, and education seems to be fancy to them also, but they have a great gift from within that need to be, that needs to have a place for them to show their capability. So I wish you all the best in the path that you are doing and now, so that you can create that pathway for the people to join and show the world how talented they are. Okay, and thanks a lot for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm delighted. Yeah, I
Yeah,
had that opportunity. Thank you.
and I'm sure with you the universe is very beautiful. As long as you have a great initiative with great purpose, there will be people joining you, supporting you, and make it happen together with you, because it's beautiful. The world is beautiful. It is. So, and thanks a lot for leading those and make it happen. All right. I wish you all the best to make it happen. I wish you all have all the support that you need and all the love that you deserve, and you need to go in that path joyfully, excitingly, and make it impactfully in your life, in the lives of others.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's
And,
very generous of you.
and
Thank you.
last thing I want to say is thank you for you to joining our show. It's our great pleasure to know you and connecting. I hope to see you in Vietnam one day, Or the next trip that I travel to the state, I'll let you. I'll try to swing by to say hello to you and stuff. Okay.
Definitely, definitely come to New York. Everyone is very welcome. We're a very big city and very inclusive. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye, and you have a wonderful
Bye
evening.
bye.
Okay. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.